Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues. Welcome to the LGMA monthly COP28 webinars. This will be the first edition of the 2023, the January session. My name is Yunus Arikan. I'm the Director of Global Advocacy at ICLE, Local Governments for Sustainability. Personally and as an institution, we are the focal point of the LGMA constituency, Local Governments and Municipal Authorities constituency. I suggest we just give a couple of more minutes for all colleagues to settle down before kicking off with the webinar. This is, we are aware typical connections may take some time, so we will just give one more minute. And thanks for your patience and interest. Great. I think we're done. Let's kick off, and those who join later on can join us in due course. Once again, my name is Yunus Arikan. I'm the Director of Global Advocacy. And for those who have joined us for the first time, this is a monthly webinar. It is announced publicly, therefore, we may expect colleagues outside the LGMA constituency, but internally, this is an internal consultation process among the networks of local and regional governments and their partners who are accredited to the UNFCCC under the LGMA constituency, but we're also sharing this information in a broader constituency, national and other constituency members or other partners who are following the advocacy of local and regional governments at the UNFCCC, the climate negotiations. These sessions are recorded. And we usually have the practice that we start with a presentation. Depending on the agenda, we may have some guests. So usually I am trying to deliver the presentation and then trying to moderate the discussion. As I said, time to time we have guests. For this round, we prefer that we go ahead with my presentation only this time. This presentation usually takes around until the half of the hour, the 30 minutes or 35, and then we open the floor for question and answer or interventions from our partners who wish to provide inputs, either to provide additional information or ask for clarification questions. You can type those in the chat box if you want, but we can also make you make your microphone on, and you can also speak if or virtually as also connect. These sessions are also repeated every around the last or third week of January, sorry, month, or the last week of month, twice at 10 a.m. Central European time, and then 4 p.m. especially enable participation of colleagues from both Eastern Hemisphere and the Western Hemisphere compared to Europe and Africa geographically. And the recording and the session presentation you can receive afterwards, also available at the LGMA website. So without further ado, as this will be the first webinar of the month, of the year, we will focus a bit more, just a recap of what has been achieved at COP27. There are some speedy updates from the COP28 preparations. This is what we will focus today a bit. We will also go through some of the calendars that some of the details of the calendar. Last time we had a bit an overview. Now there's more specific time-wise information, dates and months, and some of the processes. We will also start to discuss a bit more in depth in the stock take. Although this is a work in progress. So thank you all for your interest once again. And let's proceed. Yes, it is the constituency is accredited, or the LGMA constituency is the local and regional governments and their networks primarily and their partners. As we said, based on the accreditation to the UNFCCC, and our constituency is active in the process since '95, the first COP. We are one of the 3 constituencies who have been actively involved, and we're assuming that we are around 50 networks who have been accredited to the UNFCCC. But as we have said, we have others in the consultations as well. What we do is a year-round engagement. We follow the agenda and we try to provide inputs to the negotiations in thematic discussions or the agenda items. We provide inputs by submission of position papers or participation in the workshops and other points. So it's not just the end of the year conference of parties, but it is a year-round engagement. We are following, especially since Paris Agreement, there is an action agenda under the UNFCCC, which is not a negotiations process. This is led by high-level climate action champions and Marrakesh Partnership. Therefore, we are also participating, not as a constituency, because the action agenda is much more a multi-stakeholder process. So we don't have an LGMA as a group, but we are part of many of those working groups. The one that is closest to us is human settlements, and ICLE is co-lead of this working group on waste and consumption. The other working group is on buildings or built environment, led by UNEP Global ABC. There are other processes that many of the partners of the LGMA are also leading. In the action agenda, we are also participating in the champions initiatives like Race to Zero, Race to Resilience, or Breakthrough Agendas, or NASCA, or the global platform of the transparency of the commitments as well. Of course, we are also trying to support the presidencies to the extent possible. This is the caveat, is that the engagement of the UNFCCC and action agenda is a bit more put in stone, that there is a relatively established practices, or it's being improved with consultations. But as you know, the Conference of Parties is a process, annual process, that is every year changing depending on the regional UN regional groups, and also the host country who is representing or hosting on their behalf of these groups. And each presidents have their own authorities and their own priorities and their own styles, and they have the full authority to define their partners how to implement these agendas. We are very happy in majority of those cases. The presidencies have a huge respect and discussions or collaboration with the LGMA constituency, but they can also define their own processes and partners as much as possible. We have seen different versions. So as LGMA, we always try to reach out to the presidencies, and as I said, we will continue to do this in the next this year as well. There is this a special debate will be done on this process. And of course, the last part, we have been the UNFCCC, the climate negotiations and all multilateral environmental agreements is a party-driven process, which means it is the national governments who adopt, sign those decisions. But we have access to those countries or governments who have in their agenda more positive approach to the multi-level action. Therefore, we try to reach them through an initiative that we have kicked off since 2013. Friendly countries that are supporting multi-level action at home, domestically, but also the global agendas. And it's, of course, normal. This group of friends of multi-level action is a bit dynamic, because the national governments may change priorities depending on the result of their national elections. Therefore, it's a bit organically developed. It's not a formal body, but the logic is that once we have, for example, any documentation, any decision, any drafting text, we particularly wish to reach out those parties so that they sign or they endorse such text. But more importantly, especially with the evolution of initiatives like what we have seen in this year or last year in the surge, there are more and more collaboration with the national governments on the climate agenda, and we will talk about this also today as well. So that is what the LGMA is doing usually in this process. Of course, we have a mailing list, and we also have this practice of webinars, monthly webinars. Here's the calendar you can see, and the registration page is also available in our homepage, citiesandregions.org. And this is an opportunity for us to share our updates. But depending on the way we are handling the agendas, we create subgroups. We will have more shared documents, and some of our partners will lead specific task force or agendas. We will go to that process this year again, depending on our expertise and our capacity. So this is an inclusive and, of course, decentralized process as much as possible as well. Let's continue. Those who remember at COP27, building on our practices in the past, especially strengthened at the COP27, the blue zone, which is the heart of the negotiations, we as the LGMA have used the multi-level action pavilion as this home for cities and subnationals in its entirety, and we will continue hopefully this process. The challenge that it is really a demanding process in terms of management of this pavilion, which was around 100 meters square in at COP27 and 28, which is costly, unfortunately. And we have partners who support both financially and technically, and especially since Glasgow, we are enjoying the Scottish government to be the host of the space. It's a very, very efficient and a fruitful model of collaboration. We as ICLEI and as the LGMA focal point manage this space and time, the place. We have mainly partners in the presidencies as our collaborating partners, and the UNFCCC as well in the champions and Marrakesh partnership. Then the rest of the family of LGMA, including their partners, national governments, UN agencies, we really collectively designed the space together. What we have heard or we've seen, we had more than 500 representatives of local and regional governments across the COP in 2 weeks, registered from different processes, either LGMA partners, national governments, or UN. We had observed that we have more than 150 political leaders, councillors, deputy mayors, governors, attending these discussions throughout these 2 weeks, either intervening at the plenaries or participating in side events or other initiatives. We had at the pavilion 50 plus sessions, but across we have seen 200, more than 200 even, across the whole UN space in the blue zone. The pavilion was supported by 45 plus partners, and that's one of our real strength, that it is really this space for all of us, especially when we are much more confident and free to lead the agenda in our space. Whereas when we go to another pavilion, obviously we have to respect their priorities. But here, the LGMA defines we are the host, we are the this is our home. So that's why it's very valuable to have such a space in the UNFCCC process. Those who have attended COP27, we have discussed that there are three main outcomes that we can think about, and not just each and every decisions as such, but first of all, you remember we said COP26 was good to kick off the Paris Agreement second phase, but it was also a challenge for the emergency agenda not being addressed. And we are very happy that COP27 finally addressed this through the Loss and Damage Fund, climate justice, being at the core of the COP27 outcome. So as such, we can think that COP26 and COP27 is a package, or they were two sides of the same coin, so that it's collectively making the new second phase of the Paris Agreement. Therefore, this is good, and from now on, this is really the time to focus even more now on the implementation. And of course, it is mainly a question now on capacity building, finance, and governance, and that is the topic that we will discuss in every agenda of the Paris Agreement second phase. Secondly, we were very happy multi-level action has become the new normal. There has been so many initiatives, so many decisions, so many negotiation points, so many partnerships with national and regional and global partners, where they are focusing on collaboration with local energy governments. Surge, the one that we have worked a lot throughout the COP20 with the COP27 presidency, was one of those, but there are numerous other examples. Numerous announcements came up. So that is really giving us that multi-level action and this concept of sustainable urbanization, will be one of the most important assets of the second phase of the Paris Agreement, which was not the case in the first phase. We were acknowledged or recognized in the Paris Agreement, but it took time for the nations to position us appropriately into their NDCs and others. It's still not perfect, and there's still a way to go forward, but we are confident we have more mechanisms, more partners, and more opportunities to make sure multi-level is now being practiced, and that's why we are excited and we would like to be even more ambitious. And the third, the debate, especially on the technical and logistical challenges, political challenges, and also especially the discussions about conflict of interest and all these really a big issue about mobilizing tens of thousands of people for 2 weeks to make a meaningful outcome in a very complex agenda like climate COP has proven that the UNFCCC engagement and UNFCCC mechanisms should be now revisited, redesigned, because the current structure is not providing the necessary background to answer all these complexities. These processes are still relying on the structures that were built in 1992 or others. So we are hoping there will be more now official efforts to make sure there's a there are new ways of mechanisms, and we will get to that. For those who would like to follow what has happened, go to the website of LGMA. We have daily bulletins from the LGMA bulletin pavilion, and we also try to make sure all our interventions are also available as much as possible. Surge, as you know, was our proud that as LGMA we have supported the UN, collaborated the UN Habitat, and supported the COP27 presidency. We are aware this has been a remarkable achievement. It's the largest coalition in the urban space and climate space. Obviously, the real host at the moment, COP27 presidency, until the end of their term, of course, and UN Habitat, which was designed and the UN community as the host of this process. We will continue to serve as the secretariat. We are now in touch with a special presidency and UN Habitat how to move from this kickoff. We know UN Habitat has already drafted a summary report of this meeting, that is the ministerial meeting, which will be announced soon. We were very excited to have Global North and South being involved, and it's obvious that we will have to respect what will be the discussions, but we are also aware there is a huge appetite. We're receiving so many new messages or inputs who are looking forward to our outcomes on the way forward. So being aware that this year also there will be the second UN Habitat Assembly in June is an opportunity, because that Habitat Assembly is every 4 years. So just overlapping the synchronization is perfect. We hope that the surge will have a life beyond COP27. It is one of the very few initiatives that is included in the action agenda. So we will see. So we still recommend our partners who have been here either with their logos in the steering committee or partners, be patient a bit. We will wait for some more updates from the Presidency and UN Habitat soon. One thing that was very important after COP in Bonn, we have also heard, or we have participated collectively as LGMA, all the partners, to Montreal. ICLE and other partners played a special role again to coordinate our constituency. Good news, it was a new framework was adopted, Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, pretty ambitious. One of the targets is target 12 is on urban space and urban green areas. Then we have the second action plan for subnational governments and cities, which is even more ambitious than its first phase in 2020 and 10. The new mechanisms are also included, such as cities and regions, cities with nature and regions with nature as being its reporting platforms, advisory body of local and regional governments as well. And we had continued to have this regular summit at the COPs in the biodiversity space. This is happening every 2 years, but this time we had the first pavilion, which also demonstrated how we're advancing in these agendas. Of course, we will have more discussions because global biodiversity framework is enabling us to make the connection between nature, climate, and many other complex issues, which is in line with our expectations that climate emergency needs more holistic discussions. So Now some fresh news. This was more or less what we have discussed in the last webinar, but you remember we tried to make this who is who map, especially with the current presidency, but also the incoming presidencies. The incoming presidents, of course, are prepared for this process, and usually around this time of the year, they announce their structures, and we have to commend the Emirates, the United Arab Emirates, to kick off and publicly announce this very quickly compared to the previous presidencies. I think they were much earlier than any others. This shows how serious they are, and we know we had been in consultation with some of their staff that they have been working on this for more than a year already, so they have already been actively involved in this process. So let's remember, we have, as of today, the presidency is in the hands of Egypt on behalf of African group. It is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister Shukri, is the president, so he has the final authority. We have the climate action champion, Dr. Mohyeddin, is the action champion on behalf of Egypt. These are the two bodies acknowledged or required by the Paris Agreement or the UNFCCC. Then the COP27 presidency had their own assignments or mandates. For example, they have announced Minister of Environment of Egypt to be the ministerial coordinator inside the Egyptian government. And during the practice, we also had Ambassador Ayman Amin as our focal point for the initiative that we've developed together, the Surge initiative. These, especially the last one, was in a different style. It was not in the case of the previous president, so that's why we put this in a bit different color. And again, the blue colors is referring that it is a UNFCCC assignment. So what is now coming, mirroring from the incoming or president designate of the United Arab Emirates, is that, first of all, it is a presidency on behalf of Asia Pacific. Logistically, or let's say geographically, Egypt and Emirates is very close. You can consider that it is the same region, but according to political arrangements, these are two separate groups. Egypt was representing Africa, Emirates is representing Asia Pacific. It doesn't have immediate consequence, but it is just a fact, especially which in the sense, in many cases, the presidency's role and function shows up when it comes to the initiatives or the priority outcomes of the COP, and here they are in consultation with their regional groups as well. So that's what we think we have to acknowledge. We have now heard last week there was an announcement, and I will forward in our mailing as well, that we have now a president designate from the United Arab Emirates. He has been a very experienced and seasoned, long time negotiator on behalf of Emirates. For 10 years he has been the special envoy. He has been involved in many COPs. He's officially the Minister of Industry and Advanced Technology. This is exactly the challenge that we're all having. Every government has a different structure, how they are dealing with both climate and environment, but as well as management of a COP presidency. We have heard in the past ministers of foreign affairs, ministers of sometimes finance or even agriculture, sometimes in addition to Minister of Environment, to be taking this kind of roles as presidency or action champions. Here, in our case, in Emirates, we have Minister of Industry and Advanced Technology. However, he has a number of hats. He's a very skilled and a very well-respected person. One of his hats, in addition to others, such as being the CEO of Masdar City, flagship initiative of Emirates, he is the CEO of ADNOC, the national oil and gas company of the United Emirates. Obviously, this has also been recognized or acknowledged by the president. It's the first time a CEO will be a president, but the CEO, the company that he's leading is a bit, I don't want to say immediately controversial, but it's a bit unusual, let's say, in the smoothest sense, because an oil and gas company CEO leading a climate negotiation is, of course, a bit difficult to accept or understand. So there had been some discussion. There are still ongoing discussions. Some constituencies, especially environmental networks like Climate Action Network, have expressed their disappointment and their expectation for at least during the presidency for the president to step down from his role inside the company. We'll see how it will evolve, and I think this will also be an issue for us as LGMA. We also have to discuss how we will handle this process. Once again, he's been well known for his very innovative and ambitious agenda, but it is also a fact that we all have to acknowledge and discuss in details. Again, under the UNFCCC practices, we have the champion announced at the same time. For example, this was again a new practice. The Emirates presidency has announced the president designate, the climate action champion, and the youth climate action champion at the same time. This time, the climate action champion is Her Excellency Razan Al Mubarak. She is also the president of IUCN, and she's also very well known in this global action communities. As we said, UAE for the first time announced a youth climate champion as part of the leadership. Ms. Shamma Al Mazrui will be representing or making the connection to the youth or different constituencies. We will see whether presidency will have any contact point or focal point for surge as a follow-up from the Egyptian presidency. We'll have to discuss this. And following the practice of Egypt, the Emirates presidency, incoming presidency, has announced the current Minister of Climate Change and Environment, Her Excellency Mariam Almeri, as the domestic coordinator, both for NDCs and the Emirates 2050 targets, as well as her priority topic as food. So, as I said, this type of structure in the presidency is something, as we're expecting. Every president has their own style, and we will now be in touch with their teams, hopefully personally meet soon. And maybe some of our friends or colleagues have already met, because this week there's already an Abu Dhabi Sustainable Week is going on, and some of the partners are also in Davos as well. So there may be some interactions. So, and we're very happy if any of them has made interactions like that. So we will hopefully advance in the coming weeks and days and weeks and months. We had previously engagements with the champions and the presidencies in our webinars and other processes. So we look forward to create such opportunities, and we look forward to a fruitful dialogue and collaboration with all the leaders of the presidency. I would like to spend a bit more time in this and then focus on our potential priorities, and then try to conclude this session. So if we look at what's expecting us in the next couple of 12 months here, we try to map this in the 4 big group: the UNFCCC, the UN, the national and global agendas, and the LGMA. Because each of them are driven by different mechanisms and different partners and different processes. In the UNFCCC, we will of course have a number of submission deadlines: 15th of February, 6th of March for global stocktake, 15th of March, and 30th of April. We will have to get together who would be drafting or who would be leading the drafting of these thematic submissions. It's around 35 agenda items. It's huge. We would, of course, there will be the June session in Bonn in June. This year it will be challenging, especially for LGMA conferences, because the first week of the UN Bonn conference overlaps with the second UN Habitat Assembly in Nairobi. So we have to see how we will navigate. We are expecting soon that the dates for regional climate weeks to be announced: Middle East, Africa, Asia, Pacific, Latin America. Honestly speaking, we are been pushing for this idea that there should be climate weeks, not just in the global south, but also in the global north. We have discussed with the Committee of the Regions, and even we can discuss with the stakeholders in the US, and we will come back to that because there is a new opportunity. Throughout the year, there will be a stock take. We will discuss that. And we will be receiving a number of invitations to workshops. And this year, there will be a huge agenda for process for stakeholder engagement. Again, wrapping up this process. I will not go into this because of the time, but let's proceed so that we continue afterwards. The other UN is last year it was pretty hectic because of the pandemic. Many of the UN meetings were postponed to 2022. This year it's relatively less. The major ones are the Water Conference in March, the UN Habitat Assembly in June, the High-Level Political Forum in July, and the SDG Summit and UN Climate Week. In between, there are some others like negotiations of Plastics Treaty or GOPA, and some others, but these are the major ones that we will have to follow this year in relation to their impacts to the UNFCCC negotiations. At the global and national level, we are seeing an increase in number of engagement opportunities. That's exactly what we mean as the multi-level era has come, and this is time for this concept to be delivering as appropriately. We are seeing that G7 process, which is mirrored by Urban 7, as well as G20 process mirrored by Urban 7, Urban 20 process, will advance in their processes. I'm just looking. I think I have forgotten that there should be the Urban 20. It's in the wrong space. In any case, we will start, especially the year, with the Zero Carbon City Forum, and then Urban 7 Mayor Summit in March, the G7 Climate Environment Ministerial, the G7 Urbanization Ministerial, G20 Ministerial on Climate. Will be some of those things that we will follow, including their heads of state summits. This year, a special event is taking place in April in America, in Denver. The US State Department or US government is convening a unique summit, Cities Summit of Americas. This is again led not by us as the network of cities, but the government of the United States, the federal government. It will be a unique opportunity, and we are expecting this to be delivering a number of interesting outcomes. That's, I think, one of the remarkable processes this year. In the LGMA front, which is the one that we are hosting, and here we should have brought Urban 7 Mayor Summit to this one. We will have some consultations, the GCOM and Global Task Force in January and February. We will focus on Earth Day. June is busy because of the Brussels Summit, Brussels Urban Summit, which is more or less similar to the US and version of Summit of Americas. But as this was exactly the point. There is no regional climate week for Europe. There's no regional climate week for US. Maybe if our partners, we can organize it very well, this could be at least what LGMA could push to make those major milestone events in the year, to also have a discussion on the UNFCCC agenda. We will have Daring Cities in Bonn on 12th and 13th of June, especially. It will be immediately following the UN Habitat Assembly, but it will be during the UNFCCC call talks in Bonn. This will be an opportunity for us to make the bridge between UN Habitat or Habitat Agenda or urban community and the climate community, especially building on the fact that it's being held in person in Bonn, which is a tradition that we have been practicing since 2010, which had a gap in the last 3 years due to pandemic. But this will be bringing us back into this consultation with the advanced consultation with the UNESCO negotiators. We have other interesting initiatives like MEDCOP, Tanger, and others as well. I will proceed in the next slide because I would like to also open the floor for discussions. Under this condition, as we discussed a bit, we will be advancing on that. What could be our main goals for this year? Our suggestion would be that we should focus on operationalization of Surge initiative. This is important and experience because it just kicked off. It's not starting to deliver yet, but this practice has a huge potential to be an important example of multi-level action, especially with the national governments. We would like to see the synergy between this initiative with the Champions Agenda and Breakthrough Agenda, and we'd like to have some demonstrations in this space. Stock take for climate emergency, the local and regional versions of global stock takes. We have managed to get that the process will receive inputs from at the local level. Our proposal would be in the next slide, go into deeper it, but this should be a big agenda for this year. We have some ideas, we'll get to that. And throughout the year, especially knowing that the major negotiations have concluded, we have to make sure both demonstration at the national level and the UNFCCC process spreads throughout the year, especially with the consultations like Article 6.8 or others, or a demonstration of NDC progress. We should not wait anymore the COPs. We have to do this at home and show this results into the negotiations at the end of the year. Therefore, we have to expand our acceleration or accelerate our engagement throughout the year. Yes, last slide. Once again, we have experienced a very wonderful process called Talanoa Dialogue. We have also Cities and Regions Talanoa Dialogues. This was 2018. It was again us, LGMA, pushing the UN process to local level. And we managed this as a good practice, and we have seen how this has helped us to provide input to the second NDCs. This time, the stocktake has much even more opportunities, because when we were in the Talanoa era, there were no meaningful NDCs. There were no race to zero commitments or commitments for climate neutrality. There were no discussions on climate justice. So what we want to achieve in this local and regional global stocktakes, which should be a mechanism for us to bring the climate emergency back to the table, we should be able to make sure that there will be some models, half a day or 1 day meetings at every city hall if possible, as much as possible, but maybe with the priority cities or regions, that before the global stocktake technical dialogue in June, we have some experiences. And we would like to suggest that this will be the 22nd of April. Then we will have a discussion in June, and maybe between June and September, we have a second round. We would like to make sure this is fed by the science, the IPCC summary for urban policymakers. We want to make sure connections to the youth and other partners like Earth Day Network, all the other partners could be part of this process. We would share with you some of their ideas, but any additional ideas, in basic terms, we want to encourage a model that every city hall commits to host these meetings, and the LGMA partners, their networks, could be there to serve them as a supporting body. But the real responsibility goes to the city halls or regional parliaments or their regional governments. And that we collectively show the results. So we will share with you a kind of a model in the next couple of days. As we said, we want to make sure the first versions come up in April, and we will follow up throughout the year. I would like to give a break because I know it's already a long period that I've been speaking as a kind of a monologue. I don't want anyone to be falling asleep, and I would like to also have all of you share your ideas and preparations. But as we said, this is the first of the year. Obviously, in the first couple of weeks, people are still digesting and preparing, so it's normal. But once again, first of all, thanks a lot for your interest, and the floor is open. Let me just check if we had any. Nothing in chat box, nothing in QA. Anyone who wants to intervene now, you can raise your hand. And meanwhile, I have been informed that my colleague Ingrid Kotze has also joined us. Those who are remembering last year, we had all the LGMA webinars, a special section for our partners from the biodiversity community led by ICLE Cities Biodiversity Center, and Ingrid was fantastically leading our negotiations in that space. We have not consulted yet how much we will have this joint discussions, but Ingrid is also with us. Ingrid, maybe you have heard I made a very brief discussion about the outcome of COP15, and here's it on the screen. But if you want, you can just intervene once again. Yeah, I see your hands raised. Please, Ingrid, the floor is yours.
Hi, sorry, can everybody hear me?
We hear you, but we don't see you. Maybe it's
I need to be promoted as a panelist. Okay.
I think Kata will handle it. It will be good to see you.
Yeah, you should be able to turn your video on now.
Especially to see that you're alive after such an intense not just a couple of weeks in Montreal, but like 4 years almost in the way towards Kunming Montreal outcome. And congratulations once again for the impressive outcomes.
Okay, right, here we are. Sorry, while I was trying to do that, I had an update, a Zoom update. So I think it's the problem of when you go on leave. Thank you so much, Eunice, for giving a quick update. And I've got some really great stats to share with everybody. I mean, I think this was an historic COP for biodiversity, not just because it was the new global biodiversity framework, but also because of the emphasis on our constituencies, subnational governments and cities. And as Eunice indicated, there were several decisions, and I'm going to talk about that now. But I just wanted to also give you an indication of the historic and strategic impact and footprint that we had at this COP. For example, we had more than 1,500 registered and participating delegates from all the levels of government, and a large number of walk-ins from parties and other stakeholders, which obviously we just couldn't count. I mean, we were in the main plenary room, which is already a significant thing, the party's main plenary room, and our room was packed. We had more than 200 subnational and local government leaders there, governors, secretaries, mayors, and a whole range of other delegated elected officials. We had more than 300 cities and regions globally represented at our summit from more than 70 countries. And as far as the sort of other partners and local, regional, subnational, and international organizations were concerned, there were more than 450. And our speaker lineup was over 80. It was really an amazing summit. That was just for the summit. And then for the first time, as Eunice said, we had this pavilion. And in fact, the pavilion was an ICLEI suggestion, which we made in the early days. And I have to recognize here the amazing contribution and support, financial contribution, but also the support from the government of Quebec, because they made this pavilion possible. And it was the fact that we asked for a pavilion was then copied by so many others. So we ICLEI sort of set the tone there. And it's something that, as we were sort of reflecting on it yesterday with the SCBD, we've set the bar very high, and there's no going back now. And in future, I think the CBD knows that there will always be not just the summit as an official parallel event, but there will be these pavilions. So that, I think, was significant. And then as far as the outcomes of the summit and pavilion, there were so many launches. I mean, for example, we launched Regions with Nature. We had more than 35 new cities, 8 new regions, including Paris and California sign up to Cities and Regions with Nature. 5 new partners, including the World Health Organization, the Convention on Migratory Species, and a couple of other strategic ones. We had the launch of the Berlin Urban Pact, together with UNEP and some other international partners. There was the launch of the financial call for more finance and investment into nature. And yeah, there was the launch of the Kunming International Center of Excellence, just literally hundreds of launches, big ones, small ones. And then I think the really significant thing is the impact that we made at the policy level. So Eunice talked about the 10-year action plan, which includes our platforms, Cities of Nature, Regions of Nature, the advisory committees, but also very clear actions in relation to things like resource mobilization, capacity building, knowledge transfer, input into national biodiversity strategies and action plans, and a whole range of other thematic issues. And there's a huge expectation now, based on the incredible footprint and profiling that we had at the summit and the pavilion, that in many respects, the success of the new global biodiversity framework and its targets hinges on the contributions at the subnational levels. And And so obviously going forward, we're going to be focusing a lot on action, implementation, resource mobilization. I think the global biodiversity framework, the important thing there is that a very clear, very strong integration of the multi-level governance concept in terms of, we talk about whole of government, but strong links to institutionalizing this through the plan of action, through the structures that I mentioned just now. And then the other thing that I just want to mention in relation to the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, we need to understand that it came out as a package. So there's the framework with its targets, and there's not just the target 12. I think target 12 is very important, but there's also target 14, which specifically refers to all levels of government, and it relates to the mainstreaming thing, but also the 30 by 30 targets. You know, cities and subnational governments, by virtue of the decisions they make and the sort of work they underdo, can play a major role in achieving those targets. There's targets on consumption, there's targets on pollution, and in many of these targets, there's a role for our constituency to be played. And the parties recognize this. And I think that recognition was very clear in the way in which they came to the summit, the way in which they, I mean, one of them somebody from Venezuela that had a small delegation said to me that they're a small delegation, but she'd identified 1 or 2 sessions at the pavilion that she was going to attend because it was so important to bring, to make sure and understand what the local and subnational governments were going to do. And that was just one example. The rest of the package for the GBF that we need to take into consideration is that it came together with a couple of other decisions. So there's one on the monitoring framework, there's one on mechanisms for planning, monitoring, reporting, and review. And these two are particularly important when we look at that action plan, which recognizes cities with nature and regions with nature as the monitoring and reporting platforms. So there's a lot of work going ahead for us in that respect to make sure that we integrate with the NBSAPs and with the country reports to the CBD. Then there's the decision on resource mobilization, links again to the plan of action, and also the call from the mayors that UNEP, ICLEI, C40, there's a couple of other partners on board of that, which was launched at our summit in our plenary and has now been taken to Davos. So that's also an important factor. And what that says is, it's not just for the parties, but it also speaks to the private sector, it speaks to all levels of government, and it speaks to the finance institutions as well. So again, there's something that's going to be very significant, and it ties in with the points that Eunice was making around the climate space. So there's a lot of synergies there as well. And then the last one is around capacity building and the development of technical and scientific cooperation. Again, something that is replicated in the plan of action. There were some disappointments from a local government constituency perspective. The decision around climate and nature has been watered down. And the biodiversity mainstreaming one was very contentious, very technical, but there is still a recognition of the multi-level governance approach to biodiversity mainstreaming. There's a couple of other smaller ones like invasive alien species, there's a whole number of others, but I think those are the most important ones. And then just lastly to say that the final decisions have not yet been uploaded. They go through quite a complex process of edits, consistency edits, translation. So the GBF and its package of decisions, those are up, but the decision on engagement with subnational and local governments and its action plan is not yet up, the mainstreaming one. Those will now come, and as they come, we will share the links through this group, the LGMA group. Thank you, Eunice.
Thanks, Ingrid. And once again, congratulations to the whole constituency, but of course, your hard work, COBI, the whole Cities Biodiversity team, Regions 4, Committee of the Regions, the whole family, Quebec, Montreal. It was really, again, another example that the more the constituencies united, the better we achieve our success, and we help each other. The cities and subnationals are not against, they are together. They can make a big, big change once they are streamlined better. These are excellent examples of this can become a reality, and this should be our goal. Yes, Ingrid, you're here with us, but we have 10 more minutes. I don't know whether I haven't seen any hands up yet. Sorry. So thank you for all your good wishes. I'm sure I can feel that you're telling me that I should keep myself healthy. That's the same wish to all of you. If not, we can give a break. I see Kobe raising her hand.
Yes, thank you very much, Eunice. And I would
Kobe, is something wrong?
Oh, I didn't unmute myself. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you very much to the teams on the ground at COP15, but also to the many teams from ICLEI and from others, partners, Regions 4, C40 was there. I saw UCLG Africa colleagues there. You know, it was very nice to see so many networks also coming together. But I also want to really express here in this forum formally our thanks to our generous supporters in Quebec government, Montreal, and also the city of Kunming, the Republic of China, and so many of the ICLEI and other officers that came together and helped on site, but also back from home to make this all possible. It was a marathon 2 weeks, but ahead of the marathon 2 weeks, there was a marathon 4 years actually to get us to that point, and also let us formally express our thank you to the leaders of the Edinburgh Partnership and those who have signed the Edinburgh Declaration. That certainly gave us, through the leadership of Scotland, Quebec, Sao Paulo State and others, you know, the legitimacy also to take the Edinburgh process forward towards this plan of action decision that is now in the bag. And that is actually, yesterday we had a meeting with the Secretariat of the CBD, and they actually said in their own words, you know what this means for your constituency. This isn't a step up the ladder. It's a quantum leap. It's a complete new quantum leap that we are taking. And we need to do it together with everybody that wants to take hands with us. And the vehicles, cities, nature, regions of nature, are now formally accepted. They're wide open, they're free. We are so delighted that the World Health Organization and others came on board as partners to it. And there's certainly going to be wonderful dimensions added, and also strengthened links with climate. And there are many possibilities that we want to unpack here. So, and then maybe just one last word to say this is a big year for water, with the UN Water Conference coming up. And we are delighted to know that there will be many of our constituency members there, and ICLEI will be well represented. I know at least I will be there, ICLEI Africa office will be there, but also the ICLEI US office, ICLEI South American office, and we hope to see many more of you from this constituency there as well, working together on a number of side events and mobilization efforts. Thank you, Eunice.
Thank you, Kobe, and once again also congratulations for your leadership. It's of course 4 years plus 2 weeks, but I know how much you are passionate about biodiversity and nature being at the heart of local action. So once again, thanks for your leadership and dedication as well. Yeah, we are getting closer to the time reserved for us. I don't see any hands raised. As we said, I'm keeping on the shared screen the calendar for this year, sorry, for us to remind, as I said, this is at least a tentative expectation. There will be numerous new things to come up in the next couple of weeks to more clarification. Especially, we would come with you our proposal for how to roll out the stock take at the local and regional level, the regional level, which we suggest to be branded as stock take for climate emergency. As such, our goal is to keep the 22nd of April as the turning moment that a stock take discussion takes place on that day. It's a Saturday or around as the first wave, and this could give us the power to push the UN meetings, technical dialogues on stocktake in June. At the same time, it will also be a very powerful input to the Habitat Assembly, building on all the outcomes from Kunming, Montreal, and Sharm el-Sheikh. And with the power of the daring cities as the convening power, we can advance, because global stocktake officially in the UN jargon or UNFCCC jargon, it will be held in Dubai. But we are aiming that the global stocktake already starts at the local level and national level, that this momentum makes sure that the outcome in Dubai is more ambitious and more action oriented and in multi-level fashion. Therefore, we will have to make sure that the bar is higher, and same time we have to make sure initiatives like Surge, connections from the biodiversity process, demonstrates that they were worthwhile for our efforts. There had now been the first examples of implementation, so that's what we would like to see. Obviously, it's easier to say than to do it, to deliver it. We need number of partners to step up, to take leadership, with their leaders, be it their staff networks, or with their new resources available as well. But we believe this is doable, and we should be able to manage this in a very inclusive format, and that building on our achievements in Sharm el-Sheikh, in Montreal, Glasgow, and all those fronts, we can build on to this process. With that in mind, I thank you all for your interest and participation. I'd like to offer that we can make use of 3 minutes of our life added, freed from the LGMA agenda. You can use it as much as you wish. Every second counts. So therefore, as if there's no need for additional inputs, we are announcing that this session is closed, and we'll stay in touch via communications and via emails and other platforms. And our next webinars will be in February. Until that time, take care, and be aware the session will be repeated at 4 p.m. Those who wish, they can announce to your partners in the Western Hemisphere so that they can join us. Take care. Bye-bye.